But man, am I so happy and excited and joyful right now to be sitting here with you. And for those who don't know, we're joined together this morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you are, wherever you are, to sit here with one of my newest best friends, Debra Silverman, who is got first. Let me start with is a light in the world. Yeah, so in addition to being a world famous astrologer and a best-selling author and all these great things that she does for humanity, and is also a psychologist and is also many other things. I know not to make the mistake of saying she was into psychology first, if I recall, and maybe I'll let you share, Deborah, your astrology, journey a little bit for people. But you're looking at someone who has taken life and stepped all the way in. And it is a great privilege and pleasure to know you and to sit with you and to share the space together. So, without overdoing an introduction, welcome, Deborah. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Such an honor. I've been thinking about this interview so much and just delighted that we made our cosmic connection across the world. And here we are in this moment.
Oh yeah, it's a gift of gifts, and maybe that is like a good opening point. Which is, I know that you are deeply immersed in the world of psychology and the psychological side of astrology, in addition to all the other elements, no pun intended. But but maybe just for people who don't know you and don't know your story, how far back does this go for you?
So, as a child, I remember I lived in Detroit in a very, very Jewish neighborhood. It was synagogues on every corner. We literally didn't know what Christmas was because there was one Christmas tree on our street, and we used to run up to the window and go, "What are they doing in there?" So I was really steeped and I give such thanks that I was raised in it was kind of like like a little shtetl, like it was a Jewish neighborhood in Detroit. And I was looking through the Detroit news on a Sunday in the cartoon section. I was a little girl and I saw the word astrology and I wrote in, like you would remember when you learned how to do all the indentation when you address an envelope. I distinctly remember this. I don't know. It obviously was a karmic spiritual moment that resonated with some part of my soul. And so I wrote away, got the chart, and silly me, I was so little I had the wrong birth date written down. So it was so disappointing, which made it even more memorable. And I didn't know how to return it because I was too young. And that began my fascination with that word, astrology. It was very like bells went off. Fast forward in high school, I found a book about the moon positions and all the kids that I grew up with. To this day, I just had my 50th high school reunion, and I'm looking around the room going, and he has moon in Virgo, and she has, like, why did I remember that? But it was built into my system very young, like you, the urge or the distinct longing to have an ability to find compassion or understand why we were here started at such a young age. And it made me stand apart. I went to graduate school and got a degree in clinical psych, and all I kept doing was saying, "Can we use astrology?" And they were like, "No, you can't use astrology." But it didn't stop me. I went to my supervisor and I said, "I'm going to do a research project on mental health and astrology." She was like, "Deborah, it was 1980s. I'm older than I look." Like, no, you cannot do a research project in astrology. But I did it because I never took no for an answer. Fast forward at the sweet age of 29 during my Saturn return for everyone listening at the age of 29, 28 to 29, 58 to 59, there is a cosmic influence called Saturn return. So it takes that long for Saturn to go all the way around the sky and come back to where it was when you were born. And that's a marker. Saturn is the planet of destiny, and it describes what you're here to learn. So at 29 years old, I was living in Vancouver, Canada. I got invited to do a radio show, just, a random interview because I had this gift. And they hired me for the next 2 years during my Saturn return on a regular basis every single Monday night at 5 o'clock when they're driving home in Vancouver rush hour. They're hearing my voice, and it made me, even though no one ever could believe when I showed up, this probably happened to you, that I looked so young and I had way too much wisdom. And they were like, "Well, you're Debra Silverman. This makes no sense." However, nothing ever stopped me because, like you, I have a lot of fire. It's the element of chutzpah, of drive, of continual effort without taking no for an answer. So it then, after that experience on the radio, I realized that I could do astrology in a way that really touched people's hearts. It was concrete. You probably know this from last week. Apparently, you had this wonderful man speak about astrology. It's very abstract and it's hard to translate into English. And my specialty is making it practical. Like let this information settle into your direct experience. So it's not theory, and everything I do is based on practicality. So that made me stand apart from other astrologers because they love to talk and they talk. It's a little bit like rabbis, like the conversations never end and they argue, and there's an incredible amount of content. And then the question is, can you apply it to your life? This is always what I asked. Because my Mercury, my mind is in an earth sign. So I'm always trying to bring it down to earth. And it's not an easy thing to do with abstract concepts. You know this. And you're so good at this. This is one of our mutual gifts. We both have Gemini Sag in our chart. And very clearly it's the enthusiast, as you all know. Moshe is a very enthusiastic personality type, as am I. But then the art is taking that enthusiasm and articulating so it touches people's hearts and makes them say, oh, now I get it. And that's been my mission this life.
It's so funny as you say it. I'm thinking about the fact that, in the world of Kabbalah, right, and Hasidus, there's so many abstract ideas and concepts and systems, and the goal really is, like you said, to bring it down into a language where we can all drink from the same well, essentially.
I love that in the Kabbalah. I did study it, and I did. My son got bar mitzvahed by a rabbi in Colorado, which lent me to meet Zalman. So I've had quite a rich experience with Judaism through my children, but particularly, and the Kabbalah became part of the education for me. And I found out that you couldn't study it till after you were 40. And it was an experiential decision that you had to have enough life experience to make this information actually apply, because it is so abstract and it can take you so far away. And being almost 70, I can now confidently say I've entered the sacred temple of the Kabbalah and the mystery and understanding the whole tikkun, like what will it take for us to heal? How do we bring this planet back after being shattered? And that is my mission in a very specific way, one-on-one in my school, and you've been to it. I help people reconsider their own essence, their own soul, and then the translation of that into the physical world as a parent, as a wife, as a husband. Like it's not woo-woo astrology combined with psychology. It's a really practical, ancient wisdom it's the oldest science on earth.
Yeah, I mean, I think I heard from you at some point that Carl Jung said that psychology will be something like a dinosaur science until they like bring astrology into it. Something to that effect, right?
Your memory is shocking. It is so interesting to me the way you can retain information. That is the sign, said the astrologer, of high level intelligence. Because when you measure on all those tests, it's all about memory. So, yes, Carl Jung said psychology will be a dinosaur science until it includes astrology. And he was an astrologer. He couldn't tell. It's similar. It has been relegated to the back room. I don't know what happened. I think that was classically from the Bible saying in the Christian model, you are not allowed to have power to think for yourself. You're meant to follow. And what astrology does is it distinguishes individuality and says, here's how you can think independently. Well, that's not a good thing when you're following. So, yes, religion took away astrology's power and it's returning. And this is evidence of it here and now.
Yeah, I mean, you see all over the place. There's a renaissance and an excitement around understanding the cosmos, and I mean, even from an astronomical, perspective, people have been the last 100 years. People want to get to the moon, they want to get to the Mars, they want to get to the stars, right? So there is this relationship we have with the sky throughout history. We've been looking at the sky, and it's interesting to hear you say that religion might be one of the conduits, the vehicles for creating the almost like the covering of the pipeline. When you look at in the Talmud and you look in the Midrash, it's clear that Abraham was an astrologer, and it was, and all of the fathers and foremothers, and I mean everybody was looking to the stars. And in fact, there's obviously the probably one of the most well-known stories in the Bible is the Exodus, right? So you've got the Jewish people there, and then Moses is born, and during that time, all of the advisors to the Pharaoh turn to him and say, "You have to kill all the Jewish boys, throw them in a river." And when he asks why, he says, "Because we see in the stars there's going to be a savior, a Jewish boy is going to be born, and he doesn't do well with water, and so throw all the baby boys in the river." And and so then and they actually change like law. They change the laws in the country based on astrology. And that whole story is unfolding because they looked in the stars and they saw that something was going to happen. And in the end, they were right. They just misinterpreted it. What happens is that Moshe is born, he's protected, he gets saved and ends up being raised in the house of Pharaoh, right? And in the end, he saves the Jewish people, he brings them out of Egypt. But his downfall is when he has a bad interaction with water later in the desert, when he gets into a fight with one of God's commands, when he asks him to bring water from a rock. And instead of speaking to the rock, he hits the rock. And because of that, he ends up getting punished. And so they got the interpretation slightly wrong, but they read it all right. The whole story is a story of astrology, which is amazing.
It's so true. I think if we're really humbled and we are on our knees and look up, there is a quality of like total devotion to this masterful, unbelievable science that lives above our head, which, by the way, is the most consistent variable in this existence. We know every single day where the moon is, where the sun is. We can look back to the point where Moses existed. We can actually find a date and look at the stars and know be able to detect and execute a chart for that exact moment because it's the one thing on this planet that's completely reliable. The sun's coming up tomorrow. Well, it's about to arrive here. And the moon's up right now in this where I am. And it's completely, totally scientifically predictable. So this is, in a time when everything's so unsure. And the biblical stories echo this. There is reference and there is consistency and reliability. What is more important than what we can trust? So, learning the language of these stars that are giving us wisdom. Now, does it require an abandonment to your left brain? Because it doesn't make sense. I'm right there. The name of my new book is I Don't Believe in Astrology. I think it's so funny. You don't have to believe in it. It believes in you. There is no question. I can look at Moishe's chart and just say, you are such a Sag. And that full moon in Gemini never leaves you alone. The guy can text, write, create, make things happen. This is the sign of Gemini, speed. At the same time, he has a philosophical wizard that is always asking the big questions. And then he translates a Gemini into small bite-sized bits. So that combination of this giant mind of his with the articulation, we lean in and go talk to us. We love hearing your translation because left to our own devices, to your point, we hear the symbols or the messages from the stars, but who's the translator? And that really requires a humble mind who's hungry and innocent and available to constantly ask questions. And that's where you and I became best friends. I was like, he's so interesting. And then he said, she's so interesting. And that's why you guys are listening. And what does that suggest? That in our charts, there's an appetite or a fascination with getting to the mind's understanding of Hashem. Like, what do we do with the mindset that can translate that? And then to embody it and bring it to our soul. And that's really what distinguishes me from a typical astrologer is I just want to give your soul permission to relax. Your mind is noisy. It has a bad narrator. It doesn't have your back. It says mean things about you. This is the therapeutic part. Everyone's internal dialogue is out to get them. I hate to say it, but it's true. Your mind does not have your best interest. And until as an astrologer, you can identify what's the nature of your mind? Well, you can see this rabbi in front of us, his mind is so sharp and so refined, and he has now given it to us to be the translator and the inspiration and the tickler and the info. I can't believe the level of your consciousness. So we were just recently in LA and I've just cherished every minute because it's so rare to find someone who's humbled and innocent enough to ask the questions and then strong enough to articulate the questions and the answers that you've done. And This book is I know you guys just heard of him recently, kosher astrology. This is a sign of a being who took his mind, wrapped it around the stars, and then downloaded the wisdom by marrying the two. And that's my longing to combine psychology and astrology, to combine the mind with the heart, to allow us to stop just talking, but actually feeling our words, embodying them, being integrity, like having alignment. And it's been my long quest because I had a classical Jewish family who was uh, dysfunctional, to put it lightly. And it was no one's fault. I mean, both my grandparents, both sets of grandparents, when I had the 23andMe done, I'm 99.9% Ashkenazi Jew. It did not surprise me to find that out. And we're looking at my family and the struggle and the oi and the sadness. I made a decision that I wasn't going to continue that legacy, that I was going to put joy into the oi. That's a good title for a book.
I love that. From oi to joy.
That's been
Um,
my practice like.
okay, so tell me now about when you look at a person's chart and you see someone has what maybe you would consider a challenging chart, right? Like but people have challenging lives. Some people are challenging personalities, right? And I find that usually people who find themselves in this space is because we're trying to overcome something, right? Anybody who's looking to spirituality or who's looking to psychology is because there's something in them they're looking to transcend or deepen or explore. So how do you use astrology to help people get through or transcend or transmute those parts of themselves? Or are you just stuck? Is the person just stuck with what they got?
Yeah. So first of all, any of you listening to this, you're not stuck. You might feel like you've lost your love for life, or you might feel like you suffer from depression, or you might notice that you criticize other people all day. These are clues. It's not stuck. It's a repetitive pattern. So I'm looking at your chart right now. It's very, very unusual. You should just see his chart. Can I share?
Yeah, I can do that for you. Hold on.
Because actually the visual of your chart is so succinct, which doesn't surprise anyone. Your chart is very loud and very succinct. I'm going to see if
Yeah,
I
you
can
can share now.
okay, so here we go. His chart is, let me get rid of this and we'll make this big. So I hope it's okay with you. This is literally where the sun was when he was born at 23 degrees of Sag. And this is the sun, the circle and the dot. And this is merely a picture, literally, of the sky at the moment that Moshe was born. His mother's in the middle and she's looking straight above. And so it's 5:30 p.m., 5:38. The sun was just setting. This is the horizon. So here's the sun going down. And the day he was born, it was a full moon. So the moon, here it is exactly opposite the sun. Well, we immediately know that his sun sign is Sagittarius, which he's got a lot of Sag. They're the philosophers and the seekers, and they're funny, and they're constantly traveling and learning and sharing, and they can't do enough to be generous. And they have this ridiculous sense of humor. I don't know where it comes. They think they're funny, but more than that, they're philosophical. Totally, their appetite is insatiable to learn the purpose of our existence. And then right opposite is the moon in Gemini going, and then I'm going to put it into words. But the dilemma was he's got a musician. These two planets, this is the top of the chart. The MC is a Latin word for the top. And on the top of the sky, he had two planets in Pisces, which is the musician. So here's the conflict. I'm a philosophical seeker. I can never stop studying. And the moon in Gemini says I have to write and talk. But the musician goes, what about me? What about me? I want to play music and share. And then so there was the conflict of his early childhood is he was a rock star. I love that so much. Who then finally returned to his wisdom source, which was the seeker. And this is the really unusual part of his chart. So here's Sun at 23 degrees of Sag. The day he was born, Uranus was at 22 degrees Sag. You can see it. It's an electrical TV antenna standing right next to the sun. So I'm going to stop there and just describe Uranus. That's called Uranus. Here it is, the word Uranus at 22 degrees sitting on his sun. So here's how it works in astrology. Every single day, the sun moves 1 degree around the sky, and that's how we know your birth date and your birth sign. Because every single day, the sun is moving at this completely consistent, reliable source. And the sun describes your personality. We have it described as your ego. Raise your hand if you have an ego. Oh, look, everyone's raising their hand. Yeah, that ego impulse describes your personality. What's unusual is the planet Uranus stays in one spot for 7 years. It just stays in the same sign for 7 years. So here comes the sun every single day going around the sky. And the day Moshe was born, the sun and Uranus were at the exact same spot. What does Uranus rule? Non-traditional, break the rules, cannot follow, think for yourself. It was found during the American and the French Revolution in the 1780s, right when we first had a telescope that could look at this particular planet. It was the entrance of telescopes. And we were like, oh, there's this planet that has the description of non-tradition, don't follow, everything you've seen in revolutions. So he is a revolutionist. He cannot follow. He came here to bring us brand. Who's doing? I mean, this is the guy must have a strong Uranus as well. Kosher astrology. This is a radical departure from what you've probably heard before this last couple talks that you've been invited to. Why is astrology relevant? Well, if you have Uranus in your chart, you're interested in everything that has to do with metaphysics, that's outside the box, that forces people to think, that will not do what everyone's done before. Now, for some people, that's disruptive. In traditional Orthodox, they're like, what is he doing? This is not acceptable. But for Moshe, what he's done is he can go anywhere with anyone and bring his tradition without ever being afraid he'll dilute it because he's built to mix things together that don't go together. That's Uranus, the non-traditionalist who can mix. It's almost like a mad scientist. I put a little bit, that's what he is. So then we get the exposure to him. We feel his essence, his neshama, his soul. And suddenly we're like, I understand. I too can open up my mind. And this is the nature of your chart. You are a fire starter. You wake us up. You provoke us. You invite us into new thoughts. And that's how I got here.
Well, I'm happy I got to start that fire.
Yes. And it wasn't hard to start my fire, but yes, you're right. You definitely have ignited a continual exposure of radically new thought that brings us closer to God. Because isn't that what the Sagittarius's goal is? What can we do to, and he's so joyful. How do we bring this to Sagittarius is the happiest sign. I always say if you're born under a lucky star, if you have this much sad, he thinks everything's funny. He can turn everything positive. It's a little annoying, I bet, for your wife.
My wife is a Sag rising,
Oh,
so
took care of that.
yeah, so she's good. Wow, that's amazing. So that's what you're saying. That's all happening inside of us, and I think it's okay for me to share. I allowed myself in this last year in 2025 to actually look at astrology more seriously. That for me, I shared with them in our last call that I had my own journey and soiree into testing the waters of this world. And then it was only in the last few months, not long after we met, that I allowed myself to go to your school and to spend time and actually study it in more of a systemized way. And I find it to be fascinating would be such an insult to astrology. It's so profound. It's profound. I to this day, it's like it's one thing that there's a system. The fact that life has a system it running it is amazing. But the fact that we're given the map and the clues, meaning God could have created a world where all of these things were happening, but we don't get to see it. Like we get to see it, we get to learn it, we get to follow it, we get to understand it, we get to integrate it, we get to use it. I mean, what a gift.
Yes, yes.
That's not a given.
So much of this life is a mystery, which is why I love the Kabbalah so much, to get underneath and ask the question, what was God thinking? What is this reality meant to be for? How can I return to God my absolute delight in the beauty of this place? Well, I look at my chart and I get the cues. Here's what you promised you would give back. Here's what you promised you would learn down here. And I have certified astrologers on my team that I've trained. I just want to say, rarely do I do readings, and I do them once in a while, but I've trained and I do this. I always sing the song. I do this thing called matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match, find me a find. I put people together. I look at your chart, I look at somebody on my team, and I put you together. So to answer to the enthusiasm that you see with us is when you understand, for in Moshe's case, that he has Uranus, that ever since he was a kid, he has to let go of things. He's a musician. I loved his books. He's a musician and he walks away. That's so Uranus. He could not follow God's plan, even though it was going to hurt someone. That's now not everyone can do that. That's a very hard path. And he's built for the job to say, I'm so sorry, I'm being compelled by my soul and I can't stay here. And then we're like, but we want you to stay. Don't go, don't go. And he stays. Now, the other side of his chart is he's a dad. He's Cancer rising. So completely opposite to everything I've said. There is a homebody who loves playing house, wants to be with those kids and needs silence. Because the rest of his chart goes blah, 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 blah. And then there's this deep entrance into his soul. His soul is the rising sign or the ascendant. That's a word we use in astrology for the soul. And his soul is Cancer, which is water, sensitive and vulnerable and caring and children and wife and home. And the rest of his chart's this radical inventor of new systems and breaking the rules and leaving things. And then the Cancer goes, uh-oh, now these people, I'm not leaving. These are my kind, and so there's a distinction in the chart to describe the different voices in your head because there are so many different characters. And the gift, said the therapist who is astrologer, is I get to identify the conflict of like the singer, the voice, his amazing musical ability, and then his incredible mind that wants to write and teach. Well, those are two different people in him. And then there's the dad. So once you understand, this is what you were asking about, the marriage of psychology and astrology, I get to give people permission slips in very specific detail to articulate it so it's distinguished as your own personality and say, nothing's wrong with you. Yes, you have conflict. Your chart is difficult, to be perfectly honest. All those red lines scream he's going to have multiple characters that exist in him that must be coordinated with an observer, with a witness, with the part that can stand. And that's why we study astrology. We come off the chart and we enter into, I love the word Ein Sof, where we come out beyond the physical plane into the one where everything is transcendent. And then we make our way. This is all that the Kabbalah is about. We shatter ourselves into millions of pieces. Then we take on a body with a neshama, with a soul. And then we find our way to articulate, what did I agree to do down there again? Wait, I don't even know why I came. Oh, that's right. The astrology will give me the code to allow me to accept that, yes, Moshe, you have many personalities that coexist. You are one of those people, from the musician to the philosopher to the father to the teacher to the writer, and they coexist in you beautifully. And astrology gave you permission to say, oh, no wonder I'm a little eccentric.
Yeah, just a little bit of that Uranus. It'll get you every time.
And it only happens once a year, you guys. Only once a year is on those days that move closer, and it's the day he was born, are those two planets together. So we can look at your chart and see, what was your contract? What was your agreement? What was the assignment that Hashem gave you to say, this is why you're going to enter into the physical plane and come into this reality? Don't you want to know?
That's amazing. So it feels like, and we spoke a little bit about this with Rabbi Yitzchak. So on the one hand, there's the psychologist astrologer, and then to kind of go back to the Moshe and Moses motif where they're looking at the stars, there's like a weatherman element also of like, so you're both a psychologist, but you can also read the weather of like the energetic patterns of the systems. And how does that fit into all of this for you? Like, is that something that you focus on? Is that a main thing for you? Is that a side thing? It's because when I hear you speak and when I feel your energy, I feel there's so much love, care, and compassion for the individual that it's got to be that you still care about the weather, but I feel like you're embedded in the individual you're talking to or working with. But I want to hear from you, like, where does that fit into your
That's
paradigm
so
and how you look at all
beautiful.
of
So one, I'm a psychotherapist, not a psychologist. A PhD is a psychologist. I want to distinguish that. So I have a master's in clinical psych. You're asking me the blending of the two. Is that the question? How do I
it?
take
I'm
this?
saying in terms of like when you're sitting there on a day and you're not meeting with people, I imagine astrology is still part of your life. I don't think it
I-
disappears when you're not having a conversation, right? So
Yes.
what does the weather woman look like in you? Are you sitting there looking at it every day? Is it something you look at once a year? Is it like how much does that play into your life? And what does that look like in real time? And maybe like if you were to look at 2026, we're sitting here now. So like how does that
Yes.
unfold and unpack for you?
Such a good question. So, in the privacy of my inner world, I am an astrologer. That one stays. I know we all know this. We have these little egos. We all raised our hand and they package themselves. And my name's Debra Silverman, and I grew up in Michigan, and this is that. At the soul level, on the inner plane, I am devoted to the evolution of the human condition. In my own experience, having watched my family and the amount of oi and the amount of pain that occurred there, all the way to my collective family as I watch the planet right now. And I ask the question, so what was God thinking when she made you? That's the first question I make as an astrologer. When I'm alone, I love the idea that I can add to God's vision by being the astrologer sitting next to her or him, and however we conceive of this master intelligence. And I contribute by saying, let me be a blessing by being able to absorb today's weather. And yes, I do look at the moon every single day. I mean, it is a real thing because when I didn't pay attention, this is what astrology's really kind of slapped me around. When the Saturn return happened, 28 to 30, when Saturn cycles happen every 7 years thereafter, and I wasn't paying attention, I realized what a gift would it be for me to be in flow with the weather, bring out my raincoat and my umbrella, and be safe as compared to walking out without. So it
Mhm.
is simply a measuring tool of operating with the cosmic influence because there's respect and humility once you learn this level of consciousness that is to serve me. It has brought the oi to the joy. And I live now as you do, which is what we really resonated with a very consistent, my life has not been easy. My husband died. I had a very difficult childhood. My family, my grandparents came from Ukraine and Russia, and it was very difficult, their entrance, and it never ever went away. I can give many details I'm going to leave out. The short answer is I had to really land in my own inner world with my respect for the magic of the astrology and realize, oh, as Einstein said, God's not playing with dice. There's an order here. This is designed, and once you get the code with astrology, as you said, it takes you behind the curtain, and now you're in tandem and you're working with the angels, and boy, do they like me. Because now that I'm working with them, they're working with me. That's how you came to be. That's how we ended up in LA with all that magic. And there is something to be said about really consciously working on the inner dialogue that is put in place by the lower levels of your mind and your emotional body. The unconscious mind does not have your back, and it's built as a human condition to undermine your ability to be happy. Like we're built by gravity's expression to be, and the older we get, the harder it gets. To sit upright and be in prayer and to be in devotion activates the joy and the light, as you call it. And that is the practice for me of studying the stars because they're so reliable, they're so consistent. They've given me my best friendships with, oh, so now let's talk about 2026, you guys, announcement. I don't know if your last rabbi, the guy, the astrologer spoke to this. This is probably, and astrologers tend to exaggerate and they tend to make everything really big. And Sagittarius' best thing is, oh, you won't believe what happened to me. No, this is really the year where the planetary influences brought to you by the planets above on our Earth are very significant. Specifically, there's particular signs, and I can give you that very quick version. If you want me to do that, just go through all 12 signs and give them a little piece.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so anyone who's an Aries that's born March 19th to 25th, Neptune and Saturn, these are all jargon words. I'm going to do it in English. This is a year where you are being asked, all Aries, but particularly the early degree Aries, to identify your spirituality, find your discipline, because anything else than that is going to feel like you are so confused. It's a year of, at worst, confusion, at best, spiritual enlightenment, like really being disciplined and finding your practice and discovering what it is that you as an Aries are going to do with this strong energy. If you're born 1967, 1968, or 1997, 1998, you're in Saturn return, which means this is the year for Aries to really find their destiny line, find the discipline, and make a practice of whatever your spirituality is. Second one, Tauruses, you've had 7 years of feeling, and this is a Taurus conversation, they feel stuck. They often feel stuck. Can you hear ding, ding, ding? Because I'm going to make that go away. Why is it going ding, ding, ding? Because we're doing something so important. There, it's gone. If you're a Taurus, maybe the last 7 years you have felt Uranus was in your sign. There was a lot of change. You don't like change. You've got some relief. 2026 for Tauruses gives them a permission, their favorite thing, to go slow, calm everything down. It's been a hard 7 years. This is going to be a year of a lot of noise and a lot of stimulation. You're going to be the rock in the middle, the calm in the storm that can say, oh, yeah, I'm finally feeling a little more relaxed. And don't let the outer world take away your peace because you're built for calm, which can be translated to being boring or can be rewritten as I am stable and I can handle this. And it's now stability is now really your gift. For Geminis, anyone born May 19th to May 28th, this is a year of waking up. This is true for both Moshe and I. It's an electrical storm where it's an invitation for change. It's the opposite of what Taurus is getting. Geminis are being activated. Do you want to write? Do you want to create? Do you want to move? Do you want to buy a house? All that change factor is coming, especially those early people, May 19th to May 28th. Cancers, the last 6 months of 2025 has been in your favor. You might have moved. You might have bought a new house. You might have gained weight. Jupiter's in Cancer, and that's an indication for expansion. And they're always concerned about their weight. I wish you'd stop that. Just enjoy the food. Give yourself permission. It's a fixation for Cancers. They cook, they help, they love, and then they feel bad because they had a little bit too much. Stop that. This has been your year. And the middle of the year, July 1st and on, it shifts. So take advantage of the expansion, of the opportunities, of the enthusiasm you've been feeling. Leo, as of July 1st, you enter that cycle they were in where Jupiter enters Leo. This is 2026 is Leo's year. You are definitely, and if you're born July 21st to 27th, you are being invited to change, to expand, to take risks. So if I were you and I knew the second half of 2026 was all about expansion, I would start thinking now, what could I do? Is it moving? Is it moving furniture around your house? Is it buying new things? This is really an opportunity for your business. Jupiter in Leo is going to mean that you're having freedom to step up and step out because it's your favorite thing, Leo. You love that. Virgo, the last few years, Virgo has been standoffish. Now, this is their specialty. They observe everyone, they step back, they analyze, and they criticize. You're off the hook. 2026 for you is time to get close to your family and to move back in because you tend to be single, or at least if you're in relationship, you're very independent and sovereign. 2026 is a year for Virgos to because Saturn's been, I'm not going to go to the jargon, but you've had a difficult 2.5 years and it's over as of February 15th. You're going to feel a shift. Libra, if you're born September 19th to 26th, you're going to have a lot more discipline. Saturn's going to be in your field. It means I am going to commit. It's your hardest thing. You're fickle. You're charming. You flirt. This is not a year for that. 2026, starting in February onward, and for 2 years, it's asking you to get disciplined, make a list, check it off, have deliverables, and no more indecisiveness. Good luck with that. Okay, Scorpio. Last 2025 was a really hard year for Scorpio. I would say that so many things went wrong. 2026 already it's begun. You probably are feeling it. Opportunities coming your way. You're not going to feel the same contraction that you've been in. So it's a scorpionic where they love to be in control. There's a lot of chaos that's going to be in our world. We'll speak more about that. You and the Capricorns and the Aries have got to focus. And you're built for the job. So it's going to be a little bit easier 2026. Sagittarius, this is definitely your year. There is so much in your favor. It's the second half of the year, starting in July 1st. Jupiter goes into Leo, Saturn goes into Aries. All this is fire, and you are fire. So when you put a bunch of fire people in a room, what happens? It gets a little hot. It gets a little exciting. They've got more ideas. So this is definitely, Moishe, it's for you. What a wonderful, fun year for you. Yeah. Capricorns, you had this entrance of this year not easy. The last 2 weeks, I don't know when this is. Well, we're live, aren't we? This last 2 weeks for Capricorns has been pressure on you in a big way. It's going to change by the middle of the year. But Jupiter's been opposite you. You're being asked, as always, Capricorns are on task. They're the leaders. They're the presidents. They're the ones that take responsibility. In this month, January and February, they've been calling your name. So just stay the course. You're built for the job. Don't complain. That's the hardest thing for Capricorns. They're always like, "Oy, why am I always the one doing the dishes?" Because you're built for the job. And why not stop complaining and just do it with a smile? And then Aquarians, if you are born January 18th to the 27th, this entire next 2.5 years, you are being asked to change. Now, Aquarius, while they seem wild and free and non-traditional, they don't like change. They're fixed and they're being asked to change, especially the early degree ones. So surrender, get a reading, seek astrology. Great time for you to study. How do I open my mind? Because you're so intellectual to a new thought process. You're a great astrology student. And last is Pisces. You're going to really feel the shift in February because you've had 2.5 years of being under the influence of discipline, work, and things going hard. So it's going to shift February 15th. It's going to feel much less of that pressure. So relief is the word for Pisces. And when Pisces are under pressure, they sneak out the back room. They're like, I don't really want to. I'm going to go make music. I think I'm going to have a drink. Is it Shabbos yet? Like they're trying to figure out how to get out of it. So you are going to feel yourself less susceptible to sneaking off and more relaxed for real. So that was Debra Silverman's weather report of the 12 signs brought to you by a lot of studying.
That was awesome. Thank you. I'm sure literally anyone and everyone that has heard and will hear that will gain something this year. That is so amazing that you could just look at that and
That's what you're asking me, the weather report.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that's true on an individual level. And how does it work now? So the collective is all going through these big shifts at the same time, but you're saying the individuals are going to relate to the collective shifts in the way that are tailored for each of them. So even though there's this major, shifting that you're saying is happening over this year, but each person's going to go through it differently based on who they are in their chart.
And we're going to rely on you, all the fire signs, Aries and Leo and Sag, to keep us inspired. Because while the planet is going through the single biggest year, we've never seen this, as said the astrologers, never before have all the outer planets from Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all changed signs in one year. And we've looked back for thousands, it was like 14,000 years ago, which we have no memory of when it happened last. So there is the last time that Uranus was in Gemini, which is happening in June, was when electricity was found in 1780s. But this time it's called AI. So we're having an entrance of a brand new model of the operating system brought to us by Uranus. This is back to that planet that rules Moshe. Radical change, non-traditional. It rules electricity because it was found when they found electricity. Well, AI is about to interface with our reality in a way that we, just like we could never have predicted that you'd be in Israel, I'd be in Hawaii, we'd be inside of a technological world with a machine in front of us that has cobalt in it. It's like the craziest thing you've ever heard. Similarly, we're going to look into the future with AI's entrance, but what will stay the same? This is why I really want each of you to come study with me and study the elements. Is water, air, earth, and fire, which is the four worlds in the Kabbalah. It's the same exact system across all time. The four worlds, the four elements in the Hawaiian culture, and the indigenous cultures use the four directions. There, I've written a book called The Missing Element, and it's up to us to tell AI, leave us alone. We have our barefoot feet walking on the ground. We're drinking water. We're kissing. We're having a meditation moment. AI cannot kiss. It cannot meditate. It has no idea how to find peace. That's our job. And that's through the four elements. And it's one of my very favorite teaching tools. As you know, we did our session together. It's a simple answer to how to find balance in a time period when the worlds are, everything's going to be moving, but not at the center of your soul. There's a calm that never changes. And this is the reason why we meditate and why we come home and listen to our favorite rabbis, because it brings us peace. And that's the place that never changes. So this is the Ein Sof. Like above all of this, there's a place that we meet, you and I, which is why we felt such a bond, that is absolutely steady, stable, and always in love. Now, if you can find that place through your practice of the elements of the four worlds, of meditation, of prayer, of davening, whatever it is you do, just know there's a place that never changes. And that's the place that's going to anchor us through this. We're in a big storm. 22, I'm just telling the truth because I've got Sagittarius in me. We're in a big, giant storm. You people all know this. We as Jews know this. We've had to weather unbelievable atrocity. And yet, in the middle is this place. You know what, Elie Wiesel? You know why God created man and women? Because he loves stories. We're a story in action. That's why we're here. And if the story brings us to peace, and I personally make a practice, when you ask what I do alone, yes, I study. Yes, I read your books and Zalman's books, and I love my mind is hungry all the time. And then at the end of that, I go quiet and I go to water and turn off the knob of my mind. It's not an easy thing. It took me years to find the off button. And I enter into the center of my heart where there is so much love and so much beauty and so much stillness. And that's going to be our practice of 2026. How do we find the spot that never changes while the world is in chaos?
You know, that idea of the spot that never changes, there's a verse that says, Ani Hashem lo shiniti, I am God unchanging, right? That's what the verse means. And people ask me all the time about my book, It's All the Same to Me. They say, how could it all be the same to you? Just look around. Everything is different. We actually live in a world of proliferation and multiplicity, and actually no two cells are alike. There's nothing the same in this world. And of course, the reference point is that it's all the same to me is another way of saying if you can find the unchanging godly underpinning, the cosmic intelligence that pervades reality, there is an unchangingness that exists on the inside. It's that sameness that we look to feel into and experience. And it sounds like what you're saying is that's the world's work in 2026 and beyond is to find that ever more deeply, find that stillness, find the place of clarity and quietude that comes when we get inside in the eye of the storm, right? If the world is a storm, we have to find ourselves in the center.
And the funniest part, which I really see in you, and I see it in me, when I'm in my deepest meditation, because I do a lot of being outside, I spend a lot of time in nature. Um, and sometimes my observer kicks in because this is what I teach to be able to distance yourself from your direct experience for a moment, just to be able to see from an objective point of view. And I turn my observer on and I see me looking like this. I'm davening without the words. I'm rocking all the time. And I have this stupid little smile on my face. And I think that's what I want to say to you. And you see this with Moshe. I mean, he is such an example. The ones that you meet who have a radiance, it's in children, and you see there's this innocent smile. God is good. There is a beauty that lives at the deepest level. Silence always wins. That's where we live at the end and the beginning. So if there's permission to study, if you have appetite to go into the dark, the stars, and find the light, and then come back down and apply it to your children, to understand the uniqueness of your child and let them have their very specific version of their reality, is the greatest blessing we can give to this planet is the diversity and the celebration of how strange we all are. I mean, when I had you raise your hand, is you got an ego? How many of you think you're a little bit weird? Oh, that's right, everyone. Because that's the nature of the beauty of creation brought to us by this diverse reality that comes in, I don't know. I mean, astrology every single day when I see charts like yours, and then you're born under a full moon. Well, that's not a surprise. This is an indicator, the timing of your chart, the birth date, the city you're born in, this is all contributing. And you look at his chart and you go, somebody was thinking when they did that one. They had a mission for him. And can't you see it? And same for me. I came in so young with that young little 10-year-old going through the Detroit news, seeing the word astrology and lighting up like a Hanukkah tree.
Um, what is it? You said it a couple times. You're like, I'm not trying to be overly dramatic about this year. It's a storm. What is it about this year that you say is just so different and so unique?
Well, I would start with Saturn because this is once every 30 years in Aries. We've been living in the last 2.5 years. Saturn was in Pisces with business as usual. Now, it wasn't true for you in Israel. That was you really directly on October 7th had a direct experience of the absolute truth of the underbelly of the human psyche in the darkest fashion. So that was a foreshadowing. As a collective, we're going to watch with Saturn and Aries the request of us to stand up, to be action oriented, to be activists, to not be passive, because in Pisces, we were in shock. I'm warning you, there's going to be shocking. It's already started by the 1st of January. America diminishes its democracy. The Iranians are throwing out their electricity. What is going on in Nepal? What is going on? It's like every country I can name, not to mention Israel. So it's a signature of change by the nature of existence. It goes through a phase, and this is what we're in, and we need to name it. You take your hands off the wheel and you give yourself over to your spiritual practice and you say, I trust the higher realm. I don't trust the human at the moment. We're breaking, we're dismantling. So that's Saturn in Aries, the request for us to activate a fiery action that says, I'm willing to stand up for what I believe in. And that's what's going to be happening soon. Not yet. It hasn't happened until February, but you'll watch people on the streets. The second really strong influence I mentioned is AI. That's going to be very loud in 2026. That's the entrance of Uranus into Gemini, like what happened in 1780s. A radical new function of electricity, of consciousness that we are not familiar with, that's going to take over by the next 10 years. Well, what does that mean? Oh, that's right. Back to water, air, earth, and fire. What can I count on? Although that's the inner world that never changes. So there's a radical change that we're only going to sense it because it will show up so strong by the end of 2026 when Uranus and Pluto are having a party, which is also jargon again. I do my best not to do that. And then we're going to see halfway through this year when Jupiter enters Leo, for all you fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sag, this is so you and I, an activation portal that says you've got to stand up and speak, or you have to stay home and exercise, or you got to get back to your singing, or you've got to require yourself to write. That creative urge, which is what medicine is for the soul, cannot be laid dormant. And so many of us, when we grow up, we stop exercising, we stop creating. We leave it to us to go on to podcast and get us everyone all excited. No, you think about what you want to say. It doesn't have to be externalized. But if it's simple as cleaning up your house, if it's as simple as you deciding to really take your diet to a new level, that's what 2026 is asking. Because while the change is on the outer plane, there's an inner world that you're in charge of. Can I find my joy? Can I find my discipline? Can I find my commitment to spirit, to meditation, to prayer, to daven? Can I give myself the assignment of consistently returning every day when I wake up? Because today was, I think right now it's about 7 in the morning. The sun hasn't even risen here. Don't you think that I didn't miss my morning practice? That is so essential. That's the thing that doesn't change. But if you've gotten lazy or you let us talk about it, but you're not really practicing, if meditation is 5 minutes, if it's just 5 minutes where you devote the morning in your day to those you cannot see, to the invisible realm, may you make my life a blessing, and in exchange, I give you my hands and my feet and my mouth. Let this day be a blessing. Just start like that. And that's going to help this radical movement. We're going to be like, see that fan behind me? It's moving slowly. Just wait to the end of 2026. The
Mm.
winds of change are coming to your house. But what never changes, what remains constant, is the sun's coming up and it's asking you to pray.
Man, you definitely touch a deep chord in myself. I can only imagine everybody else that lands with and resonates with. And there's this metaphor I think about a lot. And what you're describing, and even when you pointed to the fan just now, like the imagery of the fan moving slow and then moving faster, there was one of the great rabbis of the early 19th century. He was traditionally called the Chafetz Chaim, which translates to the lover of life, but it's because of a book he wrote that's the title of the book. But Rabbi Yisrael Mar Cohen, he has this amazing metaphor where he says, life is like a postcard. Back when people used postcards, and he
I
says
remember.
the first line is, dear mom. And the second line is, I'm here now in Vienna and it's really beautiful. And then the third line is, the trip was great. And then as you go on, you get further down the line, you realize the more you write, the more you remember of what you want to say. So you actually start writing more with enthusiasm. So you start writing smaller. to fill the space. And then you realize there's a lot more to say, but there's not a lot of card left. So you actually have to fill in more and more and more until you get to the last line. And you're putting in like 50 times as many words in that last line as you did in the first one. And he says that's what history looks like. History looks like the postcard. And as we get closer and closer to the tikkun, to the healing, to the revelation of the purpose, the direction we're going in, more and faster does the world have to spin. And more has to fit in the same year. And more and infinitely more has to fit in a day than ever did 100 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And we've been in an acceleration period. And what you're saying is we're about to turn on a bit of an overdrive in the coming years, and it makes sense. And I think everybody feels it. I don't think that
Oh,
it
it's
it doesn't
everywhere.
it doesn't feel like a surprise. It just feels like, but we have to take it seriously, and the answer
And
is
then,
always going to be found here. The answer is always
exactly.
back home. And the word that, the reason why we call this program Awaken is because for me, somewhere along this last year, that was the word that kept coming up for me. But as the year went on, I noticed that that was a word that was coming up all over the place. This is there's a feeling of awakening. There's language of awakening. There's like when you describe the fire and the air of kind of like the combustion experience of like a technological revolution that's coming forward, and there's more AI, and there's the electricity that's entering our time, and that kind of the fiery energy that you're talking about. These are things that feel like we're waking up to something new. We're waking up to something ancient that wants to be born through us in our time. So there's a deep resonance there, and I think I really believe that the world is at least open now, more now than ever before, for that awakening. And for those who aren't yet even aware that they're going to go through it, the world doesn't stop for anyone. It's gonna coax us into awakening one way or the other.
It's so true. And this is where you and I and the people listening to this know the medicine, the healing balm, where the calm lives is in our practice. And so I'm always telling people, please remember the ways and the means for you to come home to yourself. And for some people, it's doing the dishes. And for some people, it's doing yoga. And for some people, it's davening. For some people, it's reading. And do it with intention to say, I am here to calm myself, to bring myself home. In the midst of this chaos on the outer plane, there is this one spot that doesn't change. And that's where I'll meet you. And when you go to that spot, however you get there, there's so many means to get there, said the astrologer. There's so many personalities. And then there's the place that never changes. And I'm so thankful that our love, meeting you and finding a friend that lives in that same spot, which makes us laugh for no apparent reason and moves us into such a high frequency, which I hope that this talk did today. It's just letting you know that yes, change is here. The winds are change are all over the place. And there's a place that's constant and it's in the center of your heart. And if you don't know how to get there, you learn and practice and study and stay around this guy because he's such a great example of what he's had to do in this life, living in Israel, having those children, having to run to his safe house, like that whole story you told, and to see your ability to stay in the center and endure, because that's just one example on the outer plane. But on the inner plane, many of you are trying to find where your safe house is. Where do you find that place to go? And it's waiting for you. It's a practice. And that's why studying astrology, studying the Torah, keep the mind neutral. You've got to have nutrients to feed. Otherwise, the gremlins, the negative self-talk, the unconscious mind of this planet does not want us to know how beautiful this place is. It's very distracting.
I can speak to you for hours, and I have. But for today and for this day, I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming and spending the time with us. And I encourage anybody and everybody who's listening to this to, if this is interesting to you, there's so much more. There's so much more to you, and there's so much more to life. And Deborah is just a wellspring of wisdom and information
Tell
and
them
care.
about the immersion that you're on January
Oh,
19th in 5 days.
that's
We didn't
right.
even,
That's right.
whoopsie.
It's
So
next week. Yeah. So if you're listening to this live and if you're getting this between now and I think we're actually together on the 20. Your immersion starts on the 19th, but I'm with you on the 22nd. I see here. Yeah. So the
I love how you
19th
have all the
19th through the
details right in your book.
22nd.
So
So
every
anyway,
day,
all of next week, Deborah is doing a powerful astrological immersion, which I'm going to be a part of also. So I'm just excited to hang around over
it's
there a little
free.
bit.
It's free. And you can come and join and hear us do our meditation, look at the charts, describe the times. And it's once every day. It's on the schedule. You'll see it. I'm sure that you have it in your links.
Yeah,
Or
it'll
you
all
can,
be down. It'll all be
and
down in the
it's so
links.
simple. Yeah.
Yeah, easy to find. Wherever you're watching this right now, it's not. If you're watching live, it's not there. But by the time you're looking at the recording, it's down underneath. And yeah, just so much gratitude, living in gratitude in this moment. So thank you, Deborah. And I'm looking forward to every opportunity we get together. And
No,
wishing
we're
you
going to
only
do it next
blessings.
week. We get to do it again.
Yes.
Hey, team. So, shalom. I love this opportunity. Aloha from Hawaii. May you all find the peace in the center of your heart and be inspired to look up to the stars because they're waiting for you.
Amen.